What's up everybody, Depressed Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video. And in this video we're going to talk about Jeff Kaplan leaving Overwatch for good, and where do we go from here? There's so many questions and there's a lot we got to cover, so let's just break it all down. But wipe away your tears with the GameLeap.com subscription in the links down below, where we have high quality in-depth guides designed to help you improve and climb at Overwatch. Go check it out right now in the links down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. So as of yesterday, 420, Jeff Kaplan has officially left Blizzard. He just straight up puff passed the lead game designer to someone else, and he's no longer part of the company, which not only did Jeff spend multiple decades as part of Blizzard Entertainment, but he has been there since the beginning of Overwatch. And for many of us, he's our meme machine. He's the person that we have always looked to for whatever's gonna happen in the game, and it is definitely sad to see him go. At this moment, we have no big idea why Jeff Kaplan has left Blizzard. We don't know if it was a conflict of interest. We don't know if he got kicked out. We don't know if he simply was tired of everything going on behind the scenes. We have no idea, and there's a lot of speculations being thrown out, but you got to remember, these are all just purely speculation, and we have no idea ultimately why Jeff left Blizzard, but we do know that he really loved Overwatch, and it definitely seems a little strange for him to part with the project that was like his love child. Now, I've seen some mixed takes about people being sad that Jeff has been gone and people that are happy seeing the game potentially being put in a new direction, but the thing is, we never know exactly what it's like behind the scenes. Yes, Jeff Kaplan was the lead game designer, but we always know that he has to appease the Activision shareholders, and we know from multiple accounts that he has to fight tooth and nail for certain types of benefits for the players, especially in Overwatch 2, so we never quite know what amount of the game's direction is because of Jeff and what amount he was fighting against or fighting in favor for. It's just impossible to know, honestly, but he definitely was at the reins, and he is no longer at the reins anymore, so that might dictate a new direction for the game. We're not entirely sure. It really depends on how hands-on Activision was in the first place. Now, a lot of you might be thinking that Overwatch is done now that Jeff Kaplan is gone, or maybe you're optimistic. I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, Jeff Kaplan or no Jeff Kaplan, Overwatch has been a sinking ship for at least a year now. Regardless of his direction, positive or negative, the whole game has been feeling like it's neglected, if I'm being honest, and I think most of you in the community would agree. Now, ultimately, the big topic of this video is where we go from here, and in order to get to that question, I need to talk about what happened to get us to this point. What happened to make Overwatch drop so low? And a lot of people are going to instantly want to talk about balance. I don't really want to talk about balance that much. We could talk about the fact that they let Mercy freaking fly and double res for way too damn long. We could talk about the fact that we were stuck in GOATS meta for over a damn year. We could talk about the fact that they have consistently buffed characters that don't take mechanical skill and has rewarded characters for simply playing what is the most powerful characters in the meta at any given moment. But I don't ultimately think that all these reasons are the ultimate thing that has made Overwatch sink. There's a lot of deeper issues with Overwatch. Other creators have also mentioned things like creator code, marketing updates, free to play. I'm not going to really talk about that stuff that much either, because I don't think that that is also what has created this current state of Overwatch. I'm gonna be brutally honest here, and I might even burn some bridges with Blizzard themselves talking about this, or Activision, and I think that the big problems with Overwatch don't have to do with Overwatch 2 taking a long time, don't have to do with balancing or marketing or any of that. It's all about money and greed. This is ultimately the problem with Overwatch, in my opinion, because if we see from every step of Overwatch, we see a consistent cutting of corners when there should never have been a cutting of corners at all. This is the biggest problem in my mind for Overwatch, and it will also be the Overwatch 2 downfall if it's not addressed. We don't know if Jeff Kaplan getting replaced will fix these problems, and honestly, I'm not optimistic about that. But let's talk about these problems, let's lay them out, and then we're gonna go on and say what needs to happen for Overwatch 2 or even Overwatch 1 to keep players interested. So the first big problem, going back to that money and greed aspect, is slow changes to the game, update, characters, etc. Now, the thing is, I understand that developing a game takes a long time, right? Adding new characters, adding new maps, whatever the case may be. That being said, Blizzard is not a small indie company. We need to stop with that meme because it is just not true. I mean, Blizzard is one of the biggest game companies in the entire world, and they are racking in so much damn money for Overwatch, and they did rack in so much damn money for Overwatch. And I understand a certain amount of that is being fronted for an investment in Overwatch 2 and other IPs, but you need to understand that there's a certain amount of investment you need to be putting in your game, and ultimately it comes down to this. Blizzard needs to stop being cheap at the expense of your legacy. If it costs more money to create more characters, more consistent updates, more content, hire more employees, up the production cycle. Doesn't matter what you have to do, and I promise you that there is a pile of cash that is going to some people in the company, but the thing is, you might be cashing in now, but you're hurting the legacy in the long run. When you compare Overwatch to many other games, the amount of consistent updates they get, the amount of consistent characters and maps, it's a plenty. And even at our prime Overwatch back in the old days when we were getting these semi-regularly, I think it could have been upped even more. And now there should have never been a downtime between Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2, especially if we're incorporating a lot of the same characters and the same core game. Who thought it was a good idea to stop creating consistent characters, maps, and updates while Overwatch 2 was on the back burner? Why didn't we have consistent releases all the way up into the point of Overwatch 2, and then Overwatch 2 was an icing on the cake release at the end of it? I do understand that the idea is you're cutting costs, you're not wasting your money, but you're losing so much damn interest. You're hurting your content creation, you're hurting the legacy of the brand. To me, it doesn't make any sense unless money is at the forefront of it all. Now, this also goes to another aspect, which is the aimbotting problem. I've talked about cheating problem in Overwatch, which has just never really been addressed. If you ever play in like High Masters or Grandmaster, it's just cheating all the time, and this has been something that has always been a problem in the game, and it's something that takes a lot of money to deal with, but Overwatch has never really put that as a priority, and it's the same way. You gotta put in initial investment to protect the competitive integrity of your game. You might be operating at a loss, it might be cheaper to cut corners, and I understand you want to appease the Activision shareholders, whatever. I don't care, I own Activision stock, I understand that you gotta appeal to the stockholders, whatever. But the thing is, I ultimately think that this is going to be bad for the longevity of the game if you consistently cut corners. The IP, the strength of Overwatch at its launch, is not going to carry the franchise for 10, 20, 30 years down the road if this is what keeps happening, and these are the corners that keep getting cut. Now, to further emphasize my point, I think another big problem with Overwatch and the downfall of Overwatch is the forced esports scene. There was no natural esports for the longest time. When we had tournaments in Korea like Apex, those were amazing to watch. If some of you haven't seen those, you need to go back and watch them because they had personalities, they had interviews, it was so freaking cool. On top of that, when we had people like Calvin and the Chipmunks, which had Siegel, Aimbot Calvin in it, and it was a tournament where this ragtag team played against legitimate pro teams for huge prizes. This was amazing to watch, and it was like peak Overwatch experience. And all of these things have been basically squeezed out by the Overwatch League, which honestly started off extremely strong, had a lot of momentum, and then they did two things. They stuck us in the GOATS meta forever, which I kind of briefly mentioned, but that was just atrocious. And then they removed Overwatch esports from Twitch, which goes back to the money and greed aspect. Honestly, if that was not a financial decision, it doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you remove it from the #1 streaming platform when it exposes it to so many people? It enables drops. You could actually go and watch the perspective of different players, something that you can still not do on YouTube. It is absolutely nuts that they would get rid of all that for what? A paycheck? I don't understand that at all. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it just goes back to the money, greed, and cutting corners that we just have had through all of Overwatch. And this is ultimately why I think Jeff Kaplan has very little to do with the downfall of Overwatch. I really think that shareholders, Activision Blizzard, or whoever is pushing the direction of the game towards the most profitable, marketable type of game, that is what's really holding back Overwatch. Now, this is all purely speculation, but if you just look at it on paper, it is incredibly hard to deny what I'm saying. Now, the last big problem I got to talk about is the slow changes to the game structure. An outdated business model, no free-to-play, things like that, that's just been basically par for the course of Overwatch. We haven't really adapted, and this might be back to that greed thing where they don't want to make any changes that are going to cut their revenue before they have to, or maybe it's just really slow movement in the company. Not entirely sure, but it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to understand that the state of the gaming world is different now. You got to adapt to it, and Overwatch just hasn't. And really, like I said before, it is getting hard carried by that initial launch success, 2016, 2017, the early 2018s. That is what's carrying Overwatch, but it's not going to keep carrying Overwatch, and Overwatch could still be thriving right now. Overwatch popped off on freaking TikTok. There was a lot of streamers that freaking loved Overwatch, huge streamers that would still be playing the game now. There is so much cult following, not to mention the freaking porn, but there's so much cult following in Overwatch. It could have such a cultural presence, period, and they freaking let all that slowly fade away. Now, if I really lay out all these problems with Overwatch, do you really think that Jeff is going to change that? Most likely not. Honestly, the company needs a completely new direction as a whole, and it doesn't look like the lead game designer has the power to make these changes, if I'm being honest. Now, I know you're probably looking for some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, as we are a Guides Overwatch channel and we want Overwatch to still be thriving, but there isn't really that much good news. Besides us just being really optimistic about Overwatch 2 and it just hitting so strong that it once again carries the Overwatch brand for multiple years to come. That is pretty much the extent of my hope for the game, but I do love Overwatch. I love it so much. That's why I want it to succeed, and I know many of y'all do as well, but I really am not hopeful about the future of the game. I'm really not hopeful about the future of the franchise, but I really want to know your opinion about all the things I said. I know this is a little bit of a different take than a lot of people have been talking about, and specifically talking about the greed and money aspect of it might give me a little bit of heat. I'm not entirely sure, but I do want to know your insight and your comments down below. But thank you so much for coming by. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm not even going to plug the website because we left on such a bad... Oh, man. Anyways, GG's.